Hey, what's up, everybody? Gonna bring you another video. Today it's gonna be a little different though. I'm actually gonna do a video on straight coaches. And it's pretty much just gonna be about, some new faces in some old places. So I hope everybody's doing good. I'm sure the quarantine's got everybody still going nuts, just like it is us. People with kids, hang in there. Just do the best you can. Hopefully this will take a couple, minutes out of your day and let you relax a little bit and just think about some football, maybe how your team's going to be next year with that new coach. So I'm going to start it off with the Cleveland Browns, where it feels like every year they got a new coach. So, going into their third year with their third coach again in the same amount of time. So, they got rid of Freddie Kitchens, who they probably should have never hired to begin with because he didn't have a great record coming in, and who knows why they even took him, especially because the coach that they actually did hire this year as the head coach, being Kevin Stefanski, he's the guy that they wanted over Kitchens last year, and for some reason, they went with Kitchens instead of him. So they decided to right that wrong this year and go get Kevin Stefanski. And Kevin Stefanski is a guy that's been in the NFL now 14 years. And he spent the past 14 years with Minnesota. And he was pretty much a primary position coach and offensive minded guy. And he pretty much coached almost all the positions on that offense over the past, 14 seasons. And just recently, he was the offensive coordinator for them. And Minnesota's offense was actually not bad. They got bit by the injury bug last year, but overall, they had a pretty good offense that was able to put quite a bit of points on the board. So they've got a young, forward-thinking coach. He uses analytics, and that can be good and that can be bad because we know sometimes stats will lie to you. But he is a younger guy, 37 years old, but he does have a lot of experience in the NFL already, and he's been around some good coaches since he's been in the league. So I don't think this coaching hire is actually a bad move. I'd probably give him like a BB plus on a grading system because they actually brought in a guy that, granted, he doesn't have the head coaching experience, but he does have coaching experience at the NFL level and is pretty successful. And granted, he's going to a Cleveland team where it seems like, they can just never get right. They finally do have players there where now it will be, can the coach put it together? Because they've got talent on the team. And you already have Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb, and then you bring in Kareem Hunt. You've got OBJ at wide receiver to go with Jarvis Landry, David Njoku at tight end. They've got the weapons that they need. So Kevin Stefanski is going to have to figure out a way to bring that all together and get them playing ball. Because obviously Cleveland was 6-10 last year, which they are steadily improving. Because if you go back 2 years, they're a 2-win team, and the year before that they're a 1-win team. So the GM is bringing in the players that they need, and now he's got a coach that may be able to help them get over that hump and actually get to play 500 ball and be an 8-8 team, or a 9-7 team, or whatever it may be. And the good thing is that division that they're in is, it seems like, except for the Ravens, the only other team that was above them was Pittsburgh, who was 8-8. So they are right in the hunt because the division kind of seems to be on a decline except for the Ravens. So this could be a good chance for them to start making some noise in that division. So that could be something to look for with them. And I've always said that I think the Cleveland Browns are getting very, very close to being that legitimate team. They just need a coach to bring it together. And granted, it takes chemistry and time when a new coach comes in and implements a new scheme. But the one good thing is at least the majority of the players on that team are now going to be at least going into their second season together. So there's going to be some chemistry. So last year with Baker Mayfield, having Jarvis Landry and OBJ, that was his first season with them. So, now they've got another year under their belt to build more and more chemistry. So we're just going to have to wait and see. And I think it's a good move, and I think Cleveland actually will be better than they were, probably a 500 team, if not better. The one thing you got to remember, Cleveland last year, even though they went 6-10, 6 of those 10 losses were by a touchdown or less. So they were in every game. So they just need that coach to bring him in, get him disciplined, and hopefully they don't make those same mistakes and they can keep moving forward and going in the right direction. So I think Cleveland is poised to start improving and making noise in that division and possibly being, a wild card playoff team or at least headed in that direction. So we'll see how Kevin Stefanski does, but I think it was one of their better coaching moves in the past 5 years, because God knows all the others were serious head scratchers. So see how Cleveland does. The next team is the New York Giants, where if anybody actually follows this page or anything like that knows I just did a video on the New York Giants and how I think they're going to be and what they needed to do with the upcoming draft and things like that. And their new coach, Joe Judge, who, again, is taking over for a 4-12 team. So it's never easy to do that, to step in when, especially in a city like New York, the fans are going to expect you to win now. There's not a whole lot of grace period, and those fans can be ruthless out there. They will not wait. They want to win now, and we're going to see if Joe Judge can actually bring that to him. He comes from the Patriots organization, where he coached there for a while as a special teams coordinator and in some other aspects. So he has at least learned under Bill Belichick how to manage a team. Now, he doesn't have the head coaching experience, but the Giants did go out and they got Jason Garrett, too, from the Dallas Cowboys, who spent the past 14 years there as their head coach and a coordinator, too. So I think with getting Garrett in there, he's going to be able to help Joe Judge navigate the landmines and figure out how to be a head coach in this league. Now, probably next to Dallas, New York is probably the other hardest place to coach in the country, because, like I said, the fans and the press is just absolutely ruthless. So that is going to be another added dimension to, the stress level of him trying to figure out how to become a head coach in this league and navigate all those landmines of all the off the field things, because New York is a very, very hard place to coach. So, but Joe Judge is a great game planner. And like I said, he comes from, a coaching tree with Bill Belichick, where, he knows how to win and he knows how to keep teams disciplined. And before he was with the Patriots, he spent some time with Nick Saban at Alabama. So this guy he's been under all the right coaches and he understands what it takes to win. And he is a good game planner. And, we're going to have to wait and see if, like everybody else, you got to wait and see. But we're going to have to see if he can actually turn this team around. They did do a good job in the draft. They went out there and, with their first pick, they got an offensive lineman that they needed from Georgia. And I think it was a very, very solid pickup. The kid can play ball. He's going to help keep Daniel Jones upright, which, is the most important thing you can do. If your quarterback's constantly scrambling around or on his back, you can't win football games that way. So they did the smart move. And I'm sure Jason Garrett probably had a lot to say in that too, because the one thing Garrett was good about in Dallas was at least knowing that he had to build his offensive lineup to make the team better. And they were able to do that in Dallas, because for a very long time, Dallas's offensive line was, if not the best in the league, one of the best. So they're going in the right direction. I know a lot of Giants fans were a little aggravated because they really wanted to pick up Isaiah Simmons, the linebacker from Clemson, on defense. But at the same time, you got a solid player, and it was really a position that you absolutely needed. So Joe Judge is in a good spot in New York right now. Obviously, they're rebuilding. I said, going from 4-12, your first year in, you'd like to see him play at least 500 ball, but it is a process. It does take time, but he does have some good people around him. They've got some talent on the team, so we'll see where the Giants go from here. But Joe Judge could be a good coach. The biggest thing will be his experience. Does he have the experience it takes to be a head coach and manage the entire system, not just worry about special teams, and that's it. He's going to have to figure out a way to do it all. So that's going to be very interesting. The next team is Carolina Panthers, and this one was a real head scratcher to me because they got rid of Ron Rivera, and granted, Ron Rivera spent 9 years there, so you get to a certain point where things can get stale and you need to change, which it seemed like Carolina did. It seemed like they had gotten to that point. They have gotten as far as they could with them, and it was time to make that change. So they did. But the issue was who they hired. They turned around and hired Matt Rule, who is a coach from Baylor. So coming from college to the NFL, he only had 1 year of NFL experience under his belt in his entire coaching career. And he was an offensive line coach for the Giants in the early 2000s. And then other than that, he's pretty much been a college coach his entire career after that. But he spent the last 3 years at Baylor, where they went 19-20. So he didn't even finish with a winning record or 500. He's 45 years old. This was a real head scratcher to me because Matt Rule does not have the experience, or he hasn't had the success, I think, to even draw a head coaching job. So this was a very odd move, especially because Carolina turns around and they got rid of Cam Newton. So you lost your franchise quarterback. Now, granted, he was another one who his past couple years, right after that they had gone to the Super Bowl, had been on the decline. And mentally, he seemed to be very different and at times super erratic, where you didn't know what was going on with him. And to get rid of your franchise QB, fire your head coach, and now you bring in a guy who doesn't have a lot of experience, who it doesn't seem like any other team was, I heard the Giants at one point were maybe looking at Matt Rule, but obviously they decided to go a different way with Joe Judge. So Matt Rule was a very head-scratching move getting him as a coach. Now, they did bring in Teddy Bridgewater to be their quarterback. They still do have Christian McCaffrey, who is the best all-around running back in the league. I don't care what you say. He's the best all-around running back in the league. He may not be the best runner among them, like Saquon Barkley or Zeke, but when you get a guy that rushes for 1,000 yards and then has another 100 receptions and another 1,000 yards, hands down, this kid is the best running back in the league right now. And Carolina, proved it by paying him more than any other running back in history. So they do have a decent quarterback. They do have a good running back. They did okay in the draft. They picked up some good players, but I think this rebuilding for them is going to take quite a long time, which I think they believe it too, because they gave Matt Rule a 7-year deal. So, I mean, even in their head, they're thinking that, it's going to take time to build. Now, the one thing Matt Rule is known for is being able to build a program, because he has done that in college. But building a program in college and building a program in the NFL, two very different things. So it's going to be very interesting to see how he does with that, because now you're in the NFL, and even though he got a 7-year deal, let me tell you something. If he starts his first 3 years and they don't play 500 ball in any of those years, he ain't going to make it to his 4th year. So he's going to have to start to show some success in the next 3 years. And this is a huge question mark, because, like I said, a grading system, when it came to this one, I would probably give him a D, because of all the coaches that were out there. I don't see why he was the one you wanted to hire. Now, they did bring in Joe Brady, who was LSU's passing coordinator last year. And if anybody watched LSU play in college, you saw that offense was absolutely lights out, especially throwing the ball, with Joe Burrow setting every record known to man for college quarterbacks. And that's realistic. He literally set every record there was in the passing game. So bringing in Joe Brady, who's a 30-year-old guy, very young, same thing, not a lot of experience, but obviously he is a damn good coach, because he took an LSU offense that was not known for throwing the ball around and turned them into a super high-powered offense that went undefeated and won the national championship, and had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback who had statistically the best season any college quarterback's ever had. So they brought in two brand new guys who, are replacing Ron Rivera, but they're very green, and we don't know what they're going to do. So this was a very big head scratcher, like I keep saying over and over again, because I don't understand why they went this way, but they did, and now we're going to have to see how it works out. I'm not saying it's not going to work, but of all the teams that we're talking about so far, they definitely have, the biggest uphill battle, especially because that division, with the Saints already being who they are and the division champs, and now you bring Tom Brady into the mix in Tampa Bay, and with all the things that Tampa Bay has picked up in free agency and the draft, you got to think that Tampa Bay is now at least a wild card contender at the very least. So, because of that division and where they stand, being 5-11 last year, I don't see them improving much more this year from last year. Maybe one or two more wins, or they could turn around and have even less wins. So this is really going to be a tough year for Carolina Panther fans. Dan Rickle, sorry, bro. This year might leave you bald if you're not already. I haven't seen you in a while. But so we're going to see what Carolina does here and see what happens. The next team, Carolina's old coach, Ron Rivera, he goes to Washington. Washington, a 3-13 season last year. Obviously, they were on a decline. They got bit very hard by the injury bug, too. They lost their starting quarterback. Alex Smith got nuked. Joe Theismann broke his leg. It was just horrific. And, they went out. They decided to fire Jay Gruden, their coach, and bring in a new guy because it was just time for a change. Washington hadn't really improved in Jay Gruden's tenure there, so they decided it was time to go a different way, and they bring in Ron Rivera. And Ron Rivera is a very, very experienced coach. Like I said, he spent 9 years at Carolina to begin with. Overall, he's 76 and 63 as a coach. He went to the Super Bowl. Unfortunately, they ran into a much better team in the Super Bowl. So they wind up losing it, getting smacked around actually by Peyton Manning. But, that's happened to a lot of people. But you bring in Ron Rivera, who extremely experienced coach. He commands the locker room. He's a very forward thinker. He likes to do things out of the book. He gambles. They call him Riverboat Ron because he will take chances. He uses analytics a lot when he is coaching his games. He does the best he can with, developing players, and he has developed, players under his coaching. He turned Cam Newton into an MVP. So, we're going to see how they do. But Washington already had a pretty decent core, even though they were 3-13. They do have players all over the place on that team that were very, very talented. And the fact that they were able to pick up Chase Young in the draft to go opposite of Sweat on the defense is really, really going to help them out. And, speaking of defense, Ron Rivera went out and got Jack Del Rio as his defensive coordinator, who is one of the best defensive coordinators in the league. The guy can just flat out coach defense. Jack Del Rio is not the greatest head coach, but he's a phenomenal defensive coordinator. And he brings that aspect. And that's the thing. Now they have so much experience because you have Ron Rivera, who's been a head coach for, over a decade, and Jack Del Rio, who had coaching experience, over the past 20 years. And I think Washington is in a very good spot to improve from that 3-13 record. They still have question marks at the quarterback position because Dwayne Haskins, who was their number 1 or number 2 pick last year, looks like he could be the starter if Alex Smith's not ready to go. And, that's the first thing they have to figure out is how to you got to get that franchise QB in there. You can't have that QB carousel going around. There's got to be some type of chemistry, and not just with the quarterback and the wide receivers and the running backs and the players, but there's got to be chemistry with the coach and the quarterback. They got to be on the same page. it helps when the quarterback understands the scheme and why they're running the scheme and how they're setting certain things up and stuff like that. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do when they don't have necessarily that franchise guy. Where are they going to go? Who? So that's going to be a big question mark for him. What they're going to do. But if anybody can do it, it's Ron Rivera. Out of all the candidates that were available this year, he is definitely one of the best ones that was on the board. So I think Washington made the right move. They got a good coach. Like I've been saying through this entire video with all these teams, it's rebuilding. It's a process. Very rarely do you see a new coach come in and have immediate success year one. It does happen, but normally that's only when the team is already stacked and the only thing that got swapped out was the coach. So we'll see what Washington does. But I do think that they're going to be improved. They're not going to be a 3-13 team again next year. Just bringing Ron Rivera in with the players that they already have is good for at least 2 to 3 more wins. So maybe they don't play 500 ball, but they could be a 6-7 win team, and who knows, maybe he turns around faster and they are better than that. So you just don't know, but they at least got the right guy in there to help turn them around and get them going. So and staying with the NFC East, I'm gonna do my team now, the Cowboys, because finally, after a decade of me praying and wishing and hoping that Jason Garrett would get canned, he finally friggin' did on my birthday too. Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. It was a great birthday present to finally have a new coach and get some new blood in there, because God knows Jason Garrett was not the guy for us. He couldn't get us over the hump, and it was never an issue of talent, because through the years we had a lot of talent on the team and we just could never seem to get out of our own way. Always getting arrested, and it just didn't seem like there was a lot of discipline on the team. And you even saw it on the field with how many, always one of the most penalized teams in the league. So getting rid of Jason Garrett was the best thing that could have happened to the Cowboys in a very long time. And I think they went out and got the best coach available. And that was huge. We bring in Mike McCarthy from the Packers, and Mike McCarthy spent, the last decade beating up on the Cowboys every time we played them. So he obviously was very familiar with the team. He knows how to build a team. You're talking about a guy that's got a .613 winning percentage in the NFL as a head coach. He's 125-77. He won a Super Bowl in 2010. He's had MVPs on his team that he's coached. He's great at developing talent. He had 10 playoff wins, 9 appearances. The guy is, extremely successful, and bringing him in was huge, because the Cowboys have a lot of talent on that team, and they really just need a coach that can bring it together. And, they were an 8-8 team last year, and, a 10-win team the year before that. And I think bringing Mike McCarthy in automatically with the core that they had from last year is good for 2 more wins. So I think they're a 10-win team right off the bat, just bringing in Mike McCarthy. And then the way the draft fell this year, they got even better. We were able to actually address a lot of the issues that we had on both sides of the ball. We got a steal with our first pick with CeeDee Lamb. Now, granted, he wasn't the player I wanted. I wanted to take Xavier McKinney. If you watched videos prior to this, you would have seen that. I was very big on Xavier McKinney. We needed a safety really bad. I thought bringing him in would have been, the best thing for us. But when you have a wide receiver like CeeDee Lamb, who is probably the best wide receiver in the draft, he is the best wide receiver. He's not the fastest like Ruggs or, Jerry Jeudy, but he was the best all-around wide receiver, and that's why he won the best wide receiver award for college, because he was the best. And not only that, he had Jalen Hurts throwing him the freaking ball. So that should tell you a lot, because Jalen Hurts has no accuracy. So CeeDee Lamb was having to really, really earn his money, because Jalen Hurts is not good. So But going back to what they did in the draft, it was good. We picked up another wide receiver to go with Amari Cooper and Michael Gallup, who were both already 1,000-yard receivers and Pro Bowlers. So now we add another weapon like CeeDee Lamb to that offense to go with Zeke and Dak. And, the offense is just getting better. And we were already statistically the number one offense in the league last year. So they're only going to get better now. And then what I thought was actually the best pick in our draft was actually our fourth rounder, getting Tyler Badass, who was the center from Wisconsin. When Travis Frederick retired for the Cowboys, that left a huge hole. And a big reason why we were only 8-8 last year was because Frederick didn't play because he had Guillain-Barré syndrome and, couldn't play because of the disease. So he missed a lot of time, and that really, really hurt the team because he was the anchor on that offensive line. And now we get his absolute clone. This kid plays exactly like him, looks exactly like him, same size. Probably the best pick we made in the draft was bringing this kid in. So Mike McCarthy has already started to help fill the holes that we needed to fill from the players that we've lost, added some more depth and talent. He turned around also on the defensive side of the ball and got Trayvon Diggs at corner out of Alabama. So, we get a top corner, which we needed to replace Byron Jones. So he's already starting to help fill in all the pieces. And he's a damn good coach. And he brought in Mike Nolan to be his defensive coordinator, who another coach has head coaching experience, very, very good coordinator. So I think Mike McCarthy was by far the best thing that the Cowboys could have done and the best hire that we could have made, because I think he was the best available without a doubt. And he's obviously very familiar with the NFC in general. He's very familiar with the Cowboys because he spent years beating on us. You look at how successful he was in Green Bay. This guy is just a very, very good coach. And I think that it's going to be an immediate impact. And again, like I said with every other team, because it is his first year, there's going to be issues with chemistry. And of course, now it's another scheme that has to be taught to the players. So that's going to take time because now the offense has to learn a brand new scheme. But the one thing I like about Mike McCarthy and what he's done everywhere he's gone and coached is that he will build his offense around the players and not vice versa. He doesn't get stuck on a certain system where you see these coaches and are like, no, this is the scheme that I run. And he tries to run it no matter what the players are. And he tries to make the players fit in the scheme. Mike McCarthy doesn't do that. Mike McCarthy makes the scheme fit around the players. So he's going to take what we already have and just tweak it so that it works best for what we have. Especially, it's going to look very, very similar to the Green Bay offense, but because Aaron Rodgers and Dak Prescott are obviously on two different sides of the spectrum, how they play, it's going to be different because he's going to have to alter it to fit the way Dak plays, which can be very, very erratic and, sometimes head scratching and it'll drive you crazy. And, but I think he's very good, and I think he's going to do a good job helping Dak develop and get him to that next level. Like I said, Aaron Rodgers under Mike McCarthy won an MVP. And granted, yes, it's Aaron Rodgers on the field playing, but you better believe that, the coach has a lot to do with it. They're watching a lot of film. He's, helping him learn and teaching him. And that's the same type of thing that Mike McCarthy can do for Dak. Do I think he can turn him into an MVP? Probably not. I don't think God could turn Dak into an MVP unless somehow they can figure out how to make him more accurate. If they can actually turn Dak into a pure passer, accurate quarterback, then yeah, sky's the limit for him. But that's a very hard thing to teach, accuracy. You can teach technique, you can teach form, but when it comes down to it, to be accurate, it's just kind of like a natural ability. You can't necessarily teach that. You can make somebody who's kind of wild get more accurate, but in the NFL, the windows are so small to get a guy to become more accurate by inches is very, very hard to do. That's why the, certain quarterbacks like the Drew Breeses and the Joe Montanas that were just ridiculously accurate, that is a God-given gift, like speed. It's just certain things you cannot teach. So I think Mike McCarthy can help him adjust with his mechanics and not dropping his elbow and keeping his index finger on the ball and telling him all these things to help him become more accurate. But ultimately, Dak is going to have to do it without thinking about it on the fly. And it comes the same thing with reading defenses. The coaches are going to try and set him up the best that they possibly can. But, when you're trying to do it within, milliseconds on the field, that comes down to the player. But the one good thing is Mike McCarthy is extremely experienced, and I think he's going to be able to really help develop the young players. And I think he's going to help Dallas possibly get over that hump. Anybody that knows me knows, yes, I am a Cowboy fan, but I'm a football fan first. And not only that, I'm a realist when it comes to my team. I know who we are. I know what we are. I think I know what kind of talent we have and what to expect. And most people can tell you the past few years, every single time the media tries to hype up the Dallas Cowboys, which they do a lot, and be like, oh, they are a Super Bowl contender, or they're this, or they're that, I'm always the first one to shut it down and be like, no, we are not. We're not there yet. We're missing pieces. And even last year, going into last year, I was like, I don't even think we win the division. I don't think we're that good. We're granted we had every opportunity last year to win a division because the whole division was just trash. But again, we didn't. And the holes that I felt we had, were a big issue. And this is the first year in probably the last 5 years that I am like genuinely excited about who we have and where we're going. I still don't think we're a Super Bowl contending team unless something happens between right now, April 29th, and somehow through the season where we're able to get a couple more pieces on defense. I think we are just a playoff contender. And, maybe we get in the playoffs and we can make a little bit of noise, but I don't think we're a legit Super Bowl contender yet. We still have too many holes on that defense. And that's going to be our Achilles heel, and it has been our Achilles heel through the years. Like the years where we had Tony Romo throwing for 5,000 yards and DeMarco Murray rushing for 1,800 yards, and we get into the playoffs and we face Mike McCarthy and the Packers, and, we can't get over the hump because our defense can't stop anybody. Tony Romo gives us a lead with 4 minutes to go, and Aaron Rodgers, right downfield, throwing all over the secondary and wins the game for him. So I think until the Dallas Cowboys defense improves, we're just a playoff team, and that's where it'll stand until we can get a legit safety. The rumor mill, Jamal Adams is looking for a trade out of the New York Jets, and apparently the Cowboys want him. If they could bring in Jamal Adams, and we would have Jamal Adams and Clinton Dix at safety, and then I would have Trayvon Diggs and Anthony Brown at corner, okay, now we're talking about something. We might have something, but that's not the case right now. So the case right now is we are a playoff contending team, possible division winner. I think I will put us as right now at least, the front runner to win the division, because I feel like we are the most improved. We had the number one offense last year. I think the defense did get a little better to begin with. Bringing Mike McCarthy in, I think, gets us 10 wins. And normally the NFC East, first 1 to 10 wins the division. So we're going to see how that goes. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you do, like, share, leave some comments. Tell me if there's any other coaching positions and on other teams that you saw that you think are going to be, impactful or anything like that. And thanks for coming by and watching the video. I'll catch you guys next time.